Hyun-woo stared at his computer screen with tired eyes. He had been working for 12 hours straight on the UES Harmony space station. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he kept drinking it anyway. Outside the thick windows, stars filled the darkness of space like tiny diamonds. The Harmony station floated at the edge of human space, far from Earth and the busy colonies. Hyun-woo's job was to listen to space. He watched for signals from human ships, messages from colonies, and sometimes just the background noise that filled the universe. Most days, nothing interesting happened. But today was different. His computer made a soft beeping sound. A new signal had appeared on his screen. Hyun-woo frowned and leaned closer. The signal was not like anything he had seen before. It was too organized to be natural space noise, but it did not match any human communication patterns. Da-eun, can you come look at this? Hyun-woo called across the room. Da-eun was the station's language expert. She knew how to decode alien messages, though humans had never actually met any aliens. Her job existed just in case they ever did. She walked over to Hyun-woo's desk, her long black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. "What do you have?" she asked, pulling up a chair. "A signal that repeats every 47 minutes and 18 seconds. It's been going for 6 hours now." Hyun-woo pointed at the wavy lines on his screen. "Look at these patterns. They're too complex to be random." Da-eun studied the display carefully. Her training had taught her to look for mathematical patterns in unknown signals. Mathematics was supposed to be universal. Any smart species would understand numbers, even if they could not speak the same language. "Tae-min needs to see this," she said after a few minutes. Tae-min was the station's chief analyst. He was older than both Hyun-woo and Da-eun, with gray hair and wrinkles around his eyes from years of staring at data. When Da-eun called him over, he brought his own coffee and sat down without saying anything. For 20 minutes, the three humans studied the alien signal. Tae-min ran it through different computer programs. Da-eun looked for language patterns. Hyun-woo checked to make sure the signal was really coming from deep space and not from some human source. "It's definitely not from us," Hyun-woo said finally. "The signal is coming from a star system about 200 light-years away. That's way beyond where any human ship has ever traveled." "And it's definitely intelligent," Da-eun added. "Look at these number sequences. They're showing us prime numbers, then mathematical constants. This is a species trying to prove they're smart." Tae-min was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I think this is a distress call." The room became very quiet. Outside, the stars continued to shine. But somehow they seemed different now. For the first time in human history, another intelligent species was trying to talk to them. "Are you sure?" Da-eun asked. "Look at the signal strength." Tae-min pointed at his screen. When it started, it was much stronger. Every hour, it gets a little weaker, and the timing is getting less regular. Something is going wrong wherever this is coming from. Hyun-woo felt his heart beating faster. "We need to tell Admiral Woo Jin." "Admiral." Woo Jin commanded the Third Fleet, the closest military force to the Harmony Station. He was known as a careful man who thought before he acted, but also someone who was not afraid to make hard decisions when necessary. The Admiral arrived on the station 6 hours later. He was a tall man with short gray hair and serious eyes. He listened quietly while Tae-min, Da-eun, and Hyun-woo explained what they had found. "How sure are you that this is a real alien signal?" he asked. 99%, Tae-min replied. "We've checked everything twice. This is not human, not natural, and not random. Someone is trying to communicate." "And you think they're in trouble?" "The signal is getting weaker," Da-eun said. "But more than that, we've been able to decode some of the mathematical patterns. They're showing us star charts, but with some systems marked differently. We think they're showing us destruction." Admiral Woo Jin was quiet for a long time. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "How far away did you say this was?" 200 light-years, Hyun-woo answered. "The signal has been traveling through space for 200 years before it reached us. So whatever is happening there might already be over," Tae-min finished. "Yes, sir. We might be listening to the last words of a dead civilization, VI." Admiral turned back to face them. "But we don't know that for sure." "No, sir, we don't." "Have you been able to decode any more of their message?" Da-eun pulled up her latest work. We think they call themselves the Kethvar, and they're fighting something they call the Devourers. From what we can understand, these Devourers destroy entire planets. How many planets? The star charts show 8 planets in their system. 3 are marked as completely destroyed. The Sidautai signals are coming from the 4th planet. Admiral Wu Jin walked back to the computer screens. What else do we know about these Devourers? Not much, Taemin admitted. But the Kethvar seem to think they're not just raiders or conquerors. They're describing total destruction, no survivors, no prisoners, just empty worlds. And these Devourers are heading toward more systems? We think so. The star charts show movement patterns heading in different directions from the Kethvar system. Admiral Wu Jin was quiet again. Hyunwoo could see him thinking, weighing options, that none of them could imagine. Finally, he spoke. I want you to keep monitoring this signal. Try to decode as much as you can, and I want you to look for other signals like this one. If these Devourers are really destroying civilizations, there might be other species calling for help. Yes, sir, all 3 replied. And I want a full report sent to Colonial Command within 12 hours. They need to know about this. After the Admiral left, the 3 humans continued working. But the mood on the station had changed. They were no longer just listening to empty space. Somewhere out there, an intelligent species was fighting for its life against something terrible. Da-Yun found the next breakthrough 6 hours later. I've decoded more of their number system, she announced. They've been fighting for 18 months. They started with orbital defense platforms around all their planets. Now they only have platforms around their home world. What happened to the others? Hyunwoo asked. Gone. Destroyed. The Devourers are systematic. They're not just attacking randomly. They're taking apart the Kethvar civilization piece by piece. Taemin discovered something even more disturbing. I've been analyzing the signal degradation pattern. If I'm right about how their technology works, they're not just losing the war. They're down to their last transmitter. How long do they have? Hyunwoo asked. Maybe days. Maybe hours. The 3 humans looked at each other. They were listening to a species die, and there was nothing they could do about it. Even if they sent a rescue mission right now, it would take 200 years to reach the Kethvar system. But then Hyunwoo had a terrible thought. What if the signal is not 200 years old? What do you mean? Da-Yun asked. What if they're not 200 light years away? What if they're closer, and we just calculated the distance wrong? Taemin started checking his calculations again, then he checked them a 3rd time. Finally, he looked up with a pale face. The signal is not 200 years old, he said quietly. It's 6 months old. The Kethvar system is only 6 light months away. And if these Devourers are really moving toward other systems, he did not need to finish. They all understood. The Devourers might be heading toward human space, and humanity had just learned that they were not alone in the universe at the worst possible time. Outside the station, the stars continued to shine, but now they seemed different, dangerous, full of threats that humanity had never imagined. Hyunwoo reached for his communicator to call Admiral Wu Jin again. This time, the message would be very different. The emergency meeting on Terra Nova started at dawn. Representatives from 12 human colonies had traveled through space to attend. Some had come from nearby systems that were only a few days away. Others had spent weeks in hyperspace to get there. Sang-hee sat at the long table in the center of the room. She was older than most of the other representatives, with silver hair and scars on her hands from the Centauri border wars. Those wars had been fought between human colonies, not against aliens, but they had taught humanity important lessons about space warfare. We're talking about getting involved in someone else's war, Sang-hee said to the room. A war against enemies we know nothing about. A war that might already be over. Across the table, Ji-ho leaned forward. He was much younger than Sang-hee, maybe 30 years old. His parents had died in the Kepler mining disaster when their asteroid mine was destroyed by equipment failure. Ji-ho had joined the colonial fleet after that, rising quickly through the ranks. With respect, Sang-hee, this is not someone else's war anymore, Ji-ho said. If these Devourers are really moving through space destroying civilizations, then eventually they'll reach us. The question is whether we wait for them to attack us, or whether we do something now. Yoonji stood up at the front of the room. As Director of Colonial Defense, she had access to military intelligence that the other representatives did not. She pressed a button, and a large screen showed a map of local space. 3 days ago, our long-range scouts detected massive energy. Signatures moving through the outer rim, Yoonji said. These signatures match the descriptions in the Kethvar transmissions. Something very large is moving through space, and it's heading in our general direction. The room became quiet. On the screen, red dots showed the movement of unknown objects through space. They were still far away, but they were definitely coming closer to human territory. How far away are they? Asked a representative from the Ross 128 colony. At their current speed, they'll reach the edge of human space in about 2 years, Yoonji replied. But that's assuming they don't speed up or change direction. 2 years, Sang-hee said slowly. That gives us time to prepare defenses. Does it? Jiho asked. Look at what happened to the Kethvar. According to the signals we decoded, they had 18 months to prepare after they first detected these devourers. They had orbital defense platforms around multiple planets. They had a space fleet, and they're still losing. A representative from New Shanghai raised her hand. What exactly are we talking about doing? We can't rescue the Kethvar. Even if we sent our fastest ships right now, they wouldn't arrive for months. But we could send a message, said the representative from Kepler Station. Let them know they're not alone. A message won't stop the devourers, Jiho pointed out. Yoonji pressed another button, and the screen changed to show ship designs. Actually, we might be able to do more than send a message. Admiral Dong Hyun has been developing response plans for exactly this kind of situation. Fleet Admiral Dong Hyun was a legend in the colonial fleet. He had designed most of humanity's current warships and had been thinking about space warfare longer than anyone else alive. When he entered the room, everyone turned to look at him. Dong Hyun was a big man with calloused hands and gray hair cut very short. He had spent more time on spaceships than on planets. When he spoke, his voice was calm and steady. The Kethvar system is 6 light months away, he said without introduction. Our fastest ships can make the journey in 4 months if we push the engines hard. The question is not whether we can get there. The question is whether we can make a difference when we arrive. What would you send? Asked Sang-hee. Everything, Dong Hyun replied simply. 12 battle groups, support vessels from 6 colonies, and the new Retribution-class dreadnoughts. The room erupted in surprised voices. The Retribution-class ships were humanity's most advanced warships. They had been built in secret over the past 5 years, designed to fight wars that might come in the future. They had never been tested in real combat. That's our entire deep space fleet, Sang-hee protested. If we send everything to help the Kethvar, what happens if these devourers attack our colonies while our ships are away? Then we lose, Dong Hyun said bluntly. But if we don't help the Kethvar, we'll lose anyway, just more slowly. Jiho stood up. Admiral, what makes you think our ships can succeed where the Kethvar failed? Dong Hyun smiled for the first time since entering the room. Because we're not the Kethvar. We don't know much about them yet, but we know they've been fighting a defensive war. They've been trying to protect their planets and their people. That's admirable, but it's not how humans fight wars. What do you mean? Asked the representative from New Shanghai. Humans fight to win, Dong Hyun explained. When we're threatened, we don't just defend, we attack, we take risks. We do things that other species might consider crazy. Yoonji brought up another display. Our ships are designed differently than what we've seen in the Kethvar transmissions. Their vessels seem to prioritize efficiency and protection. Our ships prioritize hitting power and the ability to keep fighting even when badly damaged. The Devourers have never faced anything like human military doctrine, Dong Hyun continued. They've been conquering civilizations that fight the way most rational species would fight, but humans aren't entirely rational when it comes to war. Sang-hee was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked, what are our chances of success? Unknown, Dong Hyun admitted. We've never fought aliens before. We don't know how their technology compares to ours. We don't know their tactics or their weaknesses, but we do know that they're not expecting us. That's not much of an advantage, said the representative from Ross 128. It's more than you might think, Jiho said. In the Centauri Wars, the side that achieved surprise usually won. even when they were outnumbered. Another representative raised a different concern. What about the cost? Sending our entire fleet on a rescue mission will use resources that we need for colony development. What's the cost of not sending the fleet? Jiho asked in return. If these devourers reach human space, all our colony development will be meaningless. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives worried about the risk of sending their military forces so far from home. Others worried about the cost in ships and lives. A few worried that humanity was not ready for contact with alien species. But gradually, the mood in the room began to change. The representatives started talking not about whether to help the Kethvar, but about how to do it most effectively. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right, Sang-He said finally. No half measures. If we're committing our fleet, we commit everything. Agreed, said the representative from Kepler Station. But we also need to prepare our colonies for the possibility that this mission fails. Yunji nodded. We're already working on that. Enhanced orbital defenses, evacuation plans, and emergency protocols. If the Devourers do reach human space, we'll be as ready as we can be. Admiral Dong Hyun pulled up a star map. Operation Lifeline will require coordination between multiple fleet groups and supply lines stretching across human space. We'll need support from every colony, even those that aren't sending ships. What do you need from us? Asked the representative from New Shanghai. Supplies, fuel, and replacement parts, Dong Hyun listed. But most importantly, we need crews. This operation will require more personnel than we've ever deployed before. How many people are we talking about? Sang-He asked. 50,000 crew members across all ships, Dong Hyun replied. Plus support staff, logistics personnel, and medical teams. The room was quiet again. 50,000 people was a significant portion of humanity's space-capable population. These were not just numbers on a report. These were people with families, with lives, with futures. They're volunteers only, Jiho said firmly. No conscription. Anyone who goes on this mission goes by choice. Agreed, said Sang-He. But I think you'll be surprised by how many people volunteer. She was right. Over the next week, as news of the alien distress signals spread through human space, thousands of people volunteered for the mission. Some were military personnel who saw it as their duty. Others were civilians who wanted to help. A few were adventurers who wanted to be part of humanity's first contact with aliens. The final vote was unanimous. Humanity would answer the Kethvar distress call. They would send their entire deep space fleet on a mission that might save an alien civilization or might result in the destruction of humanity's military forces. As the representatives prepared to return to their home colonies, Jiho stood up one last time. Whatever happens out there, we'll be making a statement about who humanity is, he said. We're the species that travels across the galaxy to help strangers. We're the people who fight impossible odds because it's the right thing to do. Outside the meeting hall, the sun was setting over Terra Nova. Soon, humanity's largest fleet would launch into the darkness between the stars, heading toward a battle that would define their place in the galaxy. The assembly point near Wolf 359 looked like a metal city floating in space. Hundreds of human ships had gathered there over the past month. Massive dreadnoughts floated next to smaller destroyers. Supply ships moved between the warships like worker bees, delivering fuel and supplies. Captain Min-Ho stood on the bridge of his assault carrier, the UES Indomitable. Through the large windows, he could see dozens of other ships preparing for the journey to Kethvar space. Each ship represented years of human engineering and thousands of people working together. Captain, the crew is assembled in the main hangar, his first officer reported. Min-Ho nodded and made his way through the ship's corridors. The Indomitable was huge, carrying over 2,000 crew members and 300 fighter craft. It was one of humanity's newest ships, designed specifically for projecting power across interstellar distances. The main hangar was packed with people. Pilots, mechanics, marines, and support staff filled the enormous space. They were young and old, from different colonies with different backgrounds. But they all shared one thing. They had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help strangers. Listen up, Min-Ho said, his voice carried by speakers throughout the hangar. In 6 hours, we begin the longest military deployment in human history. We're going to a star system where an alien species is fighting for survival against an enemy that destroys entire worlds. The hangar was completely quiet. Everyone knew the basic facts, but hearing them stated so simply made the mission feel more real. You've all heard the intelligence reports, Minho continued. The Devourers have superior numbers and technology. They've conquered dozens of civilizations. By all logical analysis, we're heading into a battle we cannot win. A few people shifted, uncomfortably, but no one spoke. But logic is not why we're here, Minho said, his voice getting stronger. We're here because someone called for help, and humans answer distress calls. We're here because genocide is wrong, no matter who the victims are or how far away they live. He paused and looked around the hangar. Dr. Su Young is going to explain why our enemies should be afraid of us, even though we're outnumbered and outgunned. Dr. Su Young was the fleet's chief xenobiologist. She was a small woman with intelligent eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple braid. She had spent her career studying life on different worlds, trying to understand how evolution shaped different species. Most of you know that Earth is what scientists call a death world, Su Young began. Our planet is more dangerous than most worlds where intelligent life evolves. We have earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, ice ages, and mass extinctions. Most species develop intelligence on calm, stable worlds where the environment is predictable. She pressed a button and a hologram appeared, showing Earth from space. Then it showed other planets that scientists thought might have life. The difference is important, Su Young continued. Species that evolve on stable worlds learn to avoid conflict and use resources efficiently. They become very good at cooperation and long-term planning, but they don't become good at fighting. The hologram changed to show human history, wars, natural disasters, and survival in harsh environments. Humans evolved to survive constant threats, ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun, predators that were bigger and stronger than us. We survived by being adaptable, aggressive, and too stubborn to give up. A young pilot raised her hand. But the Devourers have conquered dozens of civilizations. They must be good at fighting. They're good at overwhelming opponents who fight. Rationally, Su Young replied. They use superior numbers and technology to achieve quick victories. But they've never faced a species that gets more dangerous when the situation becomes hopeless. Captain Min Ho stepped forward again. Chief Engineer Jun Seo is going to show you what that means in practical terms. Jun Seo was a big man with scarred hands and a voice roughened by years of shouting over engine noise. He had designed many of the systems on the human ships in the fleet. Our ships are built differently than anything else in the galaxy, Jun Seo announced. Most alien vessels we've studied prioritize efficiency and elegance. They're beautiful, but they're fragile. Human ships are built to keep fighting even when everything goes wrong. He brought up technical diagrams showing the internal structure of human warships. Look at these redundant systems, he pointed at the diagrams. Every critical system has backups. If the main power core fails, we have secondary power. If that fails, we have emergency power. If the bridge is destroyed, we can command the ship from engineering. If that's destroyed, we can fight from damage. Control stations. What about weapons? Asked a Marine sergeant. Human weapons are designed for close-range combat, Jun Seo explained. Most species fight at long distances with energy weapons. We fight up close with kinetic weapons that punch through armor. Our ships can ram enemy vessels and keep fighting. Colonel Young Mai stood up from the back of the crowd. She commanded the Marine forces aboard the Indomitable. Her soldiers were trained for the most dangerous job in space, boarding enemy ships and fighting hand-to-hand in zero gravity. The enemy expects rational tactics, Young Mi said. They expect their opponents to retreat when outnumbered, surrender when outgunned, and negotiate when facing certain death. Humans do the opposite. She gestured to her Marines who were scattered throughout the crowd. My people are trained to fight in environments that would kill most species. Vacuum, toxic atmosphere, extreme temperatures, artificial gravity failure. We practice for scenarios where our equipment fails and we have to improvise weapons from whatever we can find. That seems like paranoid over-preparation, commented a supply officer. It's Tuesday, Young Mi replied with a grin. For humans, impossible situation means normal working conditions. Intelligence Officer Han Wool approached the front of the crowd. He was responsible for analyzing information about the Devourers and developing tactics to fight them. We've learned more about our enemies from studying the Kethvar transmissions, Han Wul reported. The Devourers appear to be a hive mind species. They coordinate perfectly and make decisions very quickly. This gives them enormous advantages in most battles. Most battles? Minho asked. Against most species, Han Wul clarified. But hive mind coordination becomes a weakness when facing opponents who specialize in chaos and unpredictability. If we can disrupt their coordination, their perfect teamwork becomes a disadvantage. A young technician raised her hand. How do we disrupt a hive mind? By doing things that don't make sense, Han Wul explained. Human military doctrine emphasizes independent decision-making, improvisation, and aggressive action. These are exactly the things that hive mind species have trouble predicting or countering. Captain Minho looked around the hangar one more time. The Devourers think they understand warfare because they've conquered so many civilizations. But they've never fought a species that considers certain death to be acceptable risk when defending innocent people. What they're about to learn, added Dr. Su Young, is that Earth produced the galaxy's only species that gets more effective the more desperate the situation becomes. The briefing continued for another hour. Tactical officers explained battle plans. Medical staff discussed treating alien injuries. Supply officers talked about maintaining the fleet far from any human base. But the most important part of the briefing was simpler. Humanity was different from every other species they had studied. Where other intelligent life had evolved to avoid conflict, humans had evolved to win conflicts. Where other species sought efficiency, humans sought resilience. Where other species valued their own lives above all else, humans were willing to die for strangers they had never met. As the crew dispersed to their stations, conversations broke out throughout the ship. Some people were nervous about fighting aliens with unknown capabilities. Others were excited about humanity's first contact with another intelligent species. A few were simply determined to do their jobs as well as possible. In the fighter pilot ready room, squadron leader Dal Su was briefing his pilots on what to expect. Space combat against aliens will be different from anything we've trained for, he admitted. Their ships will be faster and more maneuverable than ours. Their weapons will probably be more advanced, but we have advantages they won't expect. Like, what? Asked a young pilot. Human reflexes, Dal Su replied. We evolved as persistence hunters. Our hand-eye coordination and spatial reasoning are optimized for tracking and intercepting moving targets. In three-dimensional combat, that gives us an edge that technology can't replace. Meanwhile, in the Marine barracks, Sergeant Oakbin was having a similar conversation with her squad. The enemy has superior technology, she told them, but technology only matters if you live long enough to use it. Humans are very hard to kill, and we don't stay dead when wounded. What do you mean, Sergeant? Asked a corporal. Other species evolve to avoid injury, Oakbin explained. When they get hurt, they retreat and heal. Humans evolve to keep fighting while injured. We're the only species that gets more dangerous when wounded and angry. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Human military doctrine was being adapted for fighting aliens, but the core principles remained the same. Be aggressive, be awe. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kethvar system, and Captain Hei Wan immediately knew they were too late to save everyone. Her stealth ship, the UES Wraith, was the first to scan the system. What she saw through her sensors made her stomach clench with anger and sadness. 3 planets showed no signs of life at all. Their atmospheres were gone, their surfaces stripped down to bare rock. They looked like giant skulls floating in the darkness of space. Captain, her sensor officer reported quietly, the 4th planet still has an atmosphere, and I'm detecting energy signatures that match the distress signals. Hei Wan felt a small surge of hope. What about the Devourers? Multiple large contacts in orbit around the 4th planet. They're engaged in active combat with smaller defensive platforms. The main fleet was still an hour behind the Wraith. Admiral Dong Hyun had sent the stealth ship ahead to scout the situation and make first contact if possible. What Hei Wan saw made her realize how desperate that contact would be. Take us closer, she ordered. But keep us hidden. I want to see what we're dealing with. The Wraith moved deeper into the system, its advanced stealth technology hiding it from both sides of the battle. As they got closer to the fourth planet, the scope of the conflict became clear. The Devourer ships were enormous. Each one was the size of a human city, with organic curves and surfaces that looked more grown than built. They moved through space, with fluid grace, firing weapons that tore through the Kethvar orbital platforms like tissue paper. But the Kethvar were still fighting. Their remaining platforms fired back with energy weapons that left bright streaks across space. Some of their shots hit the Devourer ships, but the massive vessels seemed to absorb the damage and continue attacking. "How many Devourer ships?" Haywan asked. 17 large vessels, plus hundreds of smaller craft, her tactical officer replied. "The Kethvar have maybe 20 platforms left, and they're losing them fast." "Can we communicate with the Kethvar?" "Working on it, Captain." Haywan watched the battle through her ship's main screen. Even as she observed, another Kethvar platform exploded in a ball of fire. The aliens were fighting bravely, but they were clearly losing. "Captain, I have a communication channel," her communications officer announced. "It's not standard radio. They're using some kind of quantum entanglement system. Can you break in?" "I think so, but they'll know we're here." Hay-1 made her decision. "Do it!" The screen filled with static, then cleared to show an alien face. The being had large eyes, pale blue skin, and features that were almost human-like but not quite. When it spoke, the ship's computers translated its words into Korean. "Unknown vessel. This is Defense Commander Zefmar of the Kethvar Republic. Identify yourself immediately." "Commander Zefmar, this is Captain Hay-Wan of the human vessel Wraith. We received your distress signals and have come to help." The alien's large eyes widened in surprise. "Human? We have never heard of your species. How did you receive our signals from so far away?" "We have listening posts throughout our territory. Your signals reached us 6 months ago." 6 months? Zefmar looked confused. "But we have been sending distress calls for over a year." "The distance between our territories is very large," Haywan explained. "It took time for your signals to reach us, and time for us to travel here." "You traveled here? To help us?" The alien seemed unable to believe what it was hearing. "No species has ever crossed such distances to aid strangers." "Humans do," Haywan said simply. "We have brought a fleet to fight the Devourers." Zefmar was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Haywan could see explosions as another orbital platform was destroyed. "How large is your fleet?" Zefmar asked finally. 12 battle groups, about 400 ships. 400 ships crossed the galaxy to help us?" The alien's voice was filled with disbelief. "Yes, but why? We have nothing to offer you. Our worlds are destroyed. Our people are dying. What do you gain from helping us?" Haywan thought about how to explain human motivations to an alien who had never encountered anything like them. "We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing," she said. "Humans believe that genocide is wrong, no matter who the victims are. We couldn't live with ourselves if we ignored your call for help." Commander Zefmar was quiet again. Then he said, "Your species is either very noble or very foolish." "Probably both," Haywan admitted. "The Devourers are not like other enemies," Zefmar warned. "They do not take prisoners. They do not negotiate. They consume everything organic on a planet, then move on to the next world. They have destroyed 43 civilizations that we know of." "How long have they been doing this?" "Thousands of years. They move from system to system like a plague. We thought we could stop them, but—" Zefmar gestured at something off-screen, and Haywan heard another explosion. "Tell me about their ships," Haywan requested. "What are their capabilities?" "They are biological vessels, grown rather than built. They can repair damage quickly and adapt to different weapons. Their hulls are incredibly strong, and they coordinate their attacks perfectly." On her tactical display, Haywan could see the Devourer ships moving in perfect formation. They never got in each other's way, never wasted shots, never made mistakes. "Have you ever seen them confused or disorganized?" she asked. "Never. They think and move as one mind. It is their greatest strength." Haywan smiled grimly. "It might also be their greatest weakness." "What do you mean?" "Human tactics emphasize unpredictability and independent action. We specialize in creating chaos that disrupts enemy coordination. You think you can defeat ships that have conquered 43 civilizations?" "We think we can try," Haywan replied. Our main fleet will arrive in 57 minutes. Can your platforms hold out that long? Commander Zephmar looked at his displays. We will try. But Captain Haywan, you should know that this system is not the only place under attack. The Devourers sent scout forces to 3 other systems. If more civilizations fall... How many refugees do you have on your planet? Haywan interrupted. Refugees? Survivors from other worlds the Devourers attacked. Zephmar's expression became even more grim. Millions. We have been the rally point for survivors from 20 different species. They came here hoping we could protect them. Haywan felt her anger growing. The Devourers were not just destroying civilizations, they were hunting down the survivors and finishing them off. We will protect them, she promised. All of them. With respect, Captain, you do not know what you are facing. The Devourer ships are larger than anything we have ever built. Their weapons can destroy a city with a single shot. How can 400 ships make a difference? Because those 400 ships are crewed by humans, Haywan replied, and humans have never learned how to surrender. The communication was interrupted by proximity alarms on both ships. A group of smaller Devourer vessels had detected the Wraith and were moving to investigate. I have to go, Haywan said. Keep fighting, Commander. Help is coming. She cut the communication and turned to her crew. All hands, prepare for combat. Let's give our new friends their first look at how humans fight. The Devourer scouts approached the Wraith cautiously. They had never seen a ship like it before, with its angular design and heavy armor. Their bioships moved with flowing grace, but the human vessel looked like a predator waiting to strike. Captain, they're scanning us, the sensor officer reported. Let them look, Haywan replied. Weapons, target the lead ship. Engine room, prepare for emergency acceleration. Captain, there are 12 enemy vessels approaching. Should we call for backup? Negative. We're going to handle this ourselves. The Devourer ships began to spread out, trying to surround the human vessel. It was a tactic that had worked against every other species they had encountered, but they had never faced a ship designed by a species that considered being outnumbered to be a normal combat situation. All weapons, fire, Haywan ordered. The Wraith erupted with kinetic projectiles and nuclear missiles. The Devourer ships had been expecting energy weapons like the Kethvar used. Instead, they found themselves targeted by solid projectiles moving at incredible speeds and nuclear explosions that no biological armor could absorb. 2 Devourer ships were destroyed in the first salvo. The others scattered, trying to understand what had happened. Helm, close with the nearest enemy, Haywan commanded. Ramming speed. Ramming speed, Captain. You heard me? The Wraith accelerated directly toward the largest remaining Devourer vessel. The alien ship tried to turn away, but human engineering had designed the Wraith for exactly this kind of aggressive maneuvering. The human ship smashed into the biological vessel at tremendous speed. The Devourer ship's hull cracked like an eggshell, and atmosphere began venting into space. Backup targets, fire at will, Haywan ordered as the Wraith pulled away from the collision. The remaining Devourer ships found themselves facing something they had never encountered, an enemy that became more aggressive when outnumbered, that used weapons they had never seen, and that was willing to ram their ships in close combat. Within 10 minutes, all 12 Devourer scouts were destroyed. The Wraith had taken some damage, but nothing that could not be repaired. Communication from Commander Zephmar, the communications officer reported. The alien's face appeared on screen again, but his expression was composed. Admiral Dong Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Aegis, watching the tactical display show the Kethvar system. 17 massive Devourer ships surrounded the 4th planet like vultures circling a dying animal. Between them and the planet's surface, the last Kethvar orbital platforms fired desperately at enemies too large and too numerous to defeat. Sir, Captain Haywan reports that first contact was successful, his communications officer announced. The Kethvar are coordinating with us. Good. What's the tactical situation? The Devourers have stopped their systematic attack on the orbital platforms. They seem to be regrouping after the Wraith destroyed their scout squadron. Dong Hyun nodded. The enemy was confused, which was exactly what he had hoped for. A confused enemy made mistakes, and humans were very good at taking advantage of mistakes. Signal all ships, he ordered. Implement Battle Plan Alpha. All units are to close with the enemy at maximum speed. Throughout the human fleet, captains received their orders with a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Battle Plan Alpha was the most aggressive strategy in human military doctrine. It called for the entire fleet to abandon defensive formations and charge directly at the enemy's strongest positions. Captain Bo Young commanded a squadron of destroyers called the Wolf Pack. When she received her orders, she grinned and turned to her tactical officer. "You heard the Admiral?" she said. "All ships, maximum acceleration toward the enemy motherships. Attack formation Charlie." "Captain," her first officer protested, "the enemy ships are 50 times larger than our destroyers. This is suicide." "No," Bo Young replied. "This is human naval doctrine. We don't fight fair, and we don't fight at long range. We get close, hit hard, and keep hitting until something breaks." On the fighter carrier UES Valkyrie, squadron leader Jae Hyun was briefing his pilots for the battle. "The enemy bioships are faster and more maneuverable than anything we've ever fought," he told them. "Their weapons are more advanced than ours. By every logical analysis, we should lose this engagement." The young pilots listened nervously. Some of them had never been in real combat before. "But logic is not how humans fight," Jae-hyun continued. "We evolved as persistence hunters. We tracked prey across hundreds of kilometers until it collapsed from exhaustion. We never gave up, even when the prey was bigger and stronger than us." "How does that help us in space combat?" asked a young pilot. "Because space combat is just three-dimensional hunting," Jae-hyun explained. "Your reflexes, your spatial reasoning, your ability to predict where a target will be. These are all hunter instincts that the enemy doesn't have. They're hive-mind creatures that rely on perfect coordination. But hunters work alone and make split-second decisions." Aboard the dreadnought UES Prometheus, Chief Engineer Si Jin was implementing emergency protocols that would have terrified any sane species. "Reroute all power from life support to weapons," she ordered her crew. "Overload the fusion reactors to 150% capacity. Shut down everything that isn't essential for combat." "Chief, those settings are way beyond safety margins," one of her technicians protested. "Safety margins are for peacetime," Si Jin replied. "We're about to fight the largest space battle in human history. If we worry about safety, we'll all be dead anyway." The human fleet approached the Devourer ships in a formation that looked chaotic to alien observers. Where the biological vessels moved in perfect coordinated patterns, the human ships spread out in seemingly random directions, each captain making independent decisions about how to approach the enemy. To the Devourers, this looked like poor coordination. They had fought dozens of species, and all of them had used organized, predictable battle formations. The human approach looked like incompetence. They were about to learn the difference between chaos and controlled aggression. "All ships, engage, at will," Admiral Dong-hyun broadcast to the fleet. The battle began with the human destroyers reaching the enemy first. Captain Bo Young's wolf pack scattered in different directions as they approached the nearest Devourer mothership. The biological vessel tried to track multiple small targets at once, something its coordination systems had never been designed to handle. "Target their weapon clusters," Bo Young ordered. "Close to point-blank range." Her destroyers dove at the massive enemy ship like attack dogs going for a bear's throat. The Devourer vessel fired its weapons, but the human ships were too small and too agile to hit with weapons designed for large-scale orbital bombardment. Bo Young's ship, the UES Fenrir, flew directly over the enemy vessel's hull, firing kinetic projectiles into weapon installations at ranges measured in hundreds of meters. At that distance, even the Devourer's heavy armor could not stop human penetrator rounds. "Weapons hit," her tactical officer reported. "Enemy vessel is losing firepower." Similar attacks were happening throughout the battle zone. Human ships attacked in ways that the Devourers had never encountered. Instead of fighting at long range with energy weapons, they closed to knife-fighting distance and used kinetic weapons that punched through biological armor. Squadron leader Jae-hyun led his fighters against a cluster of smaller Devourer vessels. The alien ships tried to intercept the human fighters with their own small craft, but they quickly discovered that human pilots had advantages no one had expected. "Break formation and engage independently," Jae-hyun ordered. "Use hunting tactics." The human fighters scattered and began individual attacks on the enemy craft. Where the Devourer pilots relied on coordinated tactics and superior technology, the human pilots used instincts developed over millions of years of evolution. Jae-hyun tracked an enemy fighter through a complex three-dimensional chase, predicting its movements the way his ancestors had predicted the movements of running prey. When he fired, his weapons found their target with an accuracy that amazed even him. "These alien pilots are good," he reported to his squadron, "but they think like a hive mind. They can't improvise when their coordination breaks down." On the UES Prometheus, Chief Engineer Si-Jin watched her overloaded systems push the massive dreadnought to performance levels that violated every safety protocol ever written. "Fusion reactors at 150%, she reported to the bridge. "Hull stress is approaching critical levels." "Can we maintain this?" Captain Minsu asked. "For about 30 minutes, Se-Jin replied. "After that, we either win the battle or the ship breaks apart." "Understood. Continue overload procedures." The Prometheus accelerated toward the largest Devourer mothership, its weapons charging for a bombardment that would either destroy the wall's enemy or destroy itself in the attempt. Throughout the battle zone, human ships were implementing the doctrine that had been developed during centuries of warfare on Earth. When facing a superior enemy, don't fight fair, don't fight defensively, and never surrender. The Devourers found themselves facing something completely outside their experience. Every species they had conquered had fought rationally, trying to minimize losses while maximizing damage to the enemy. The humans were doing the opposite. They were maximizing their own risk in order to create chaos in the enemy formations. Captain Hyo-Rin commanded the medical frigate UES Sanctuary, one of the few non-combat vessels in the fleet. But even she was participating in the battle in a way that would have shocked most alien species. "Take us into the combat zone," she ordered her crew. "There are damaged ships that need assistance." "Captain, we're a medical vessel," her first officer protested. "We don't belong in a battle zone." "Humans don't abandon wounded comrades," Hyo-Rin replied. "If our people are hurt, we go get them. That's how we fight." The Sanctuary dove into the middle of the space battle, dodging weapons fire from both sides as it approached damaged human vessels. Its crew worked to rescue survivors and provide medical aid, while energy beams and kinetic projectiles streaked past their hull. To the Devourers, this looked like insanity. No rational species would risk a valuable medical ship in active combat. But to humans, it was simply another example of their fundamental principle: no one gets left behind. Marine Colonel Dae-ho was leading a boarding party onto a damaged Devourer bioship. His troops had blown a hole in the alien vessel's hull and were fighting their way through corridors that had never been designed for human anatomy. "The ship's interior is completely organic," he reported to his command. "Walls, floors, everything. It's like fighting inside a living creature." "Are you encountering resistance?" Admiral Dong-hyun asked. "Some, but not what we expected. These aliens rely on their ship's systems to coordinate their actions. When we damaged their hull, we disrupted their communication networks. They're fighting as individuals now, and they're not very good at it." Dae-ho and his Marines moved through the alien ship using tactics developed for urban warfare on Earth. They moved independently, made quick decisions without consulting higher command, and adapted to unexpected situations by improvising new approaches. The Devourer crew found themselves facing something their hive mind coordination had never prepared them for: enemies who thrived on chaos and confusion. As the battle continued, it became clear that something unprecedented was happening. The Devourers, who had conquered 43 civilizations without ever suffering a major defeat, were losing a battle against an enemy they outnumbered and outgunned, communications officer. The retreat began slowly. At first, only 1 or 2 Devourer ships started moving away from the battle zone. Then more followed, until the entire enemy fleet was withdrawing from Kethavar space. Admiral Dong-hyun watched from the bridge of the Aegis as the massive biological vessels limped away from the planet they had been trying to consume. 7 of the 17 enemy motherships were either destroyed or too damaged to fight. The remaining 10 were fleeing toward the edge of the star system. "Sir, should we pursue?" asked his tactical officer. Dong-hyun considered the question. The human fleet had taken heavy damage in the battle. Many ships needed repairs and casualties. were mounting. But they had also achieved something impossible. They had forced a Devourer fleet to retreat. Negative, he decided. Let them go. We've made our point. Throughout the human fleet, crews were celebrating and assessing damage at the same time. The battle had been won, but the cost had been significant. 6 human ships had been destroyed completely, and dozens more needed major repairs. But they had saved the Kethvar and proven that the Devourers could be defeated. Captain Haywan brought the Wraith alongside one of the surviving Kethvar orbital platforms. The alien station was badly damaged but still operational. When Commander Zephmar appeared on her communication screen, his expression was one of amazement and gratitude. Captain Haywan, your people have done something we thought was impossible, he said. The Devourers have never retreated from a battle before. They retreated because they realized they couldn't win, Haywan replied. Humans don't fight the way other species fight. We create chaos instead of order, and we get more dangerous when the situation gets desperate. Your losses, Zephmar began, are acceptable, Haywan finished. We knew this would be costly. But some things are worth the cost. Why? Zephmar asked again. We still do not understand why your species would travel so far and risk so much for strangers. Haywan thought about how to explain human nature to an alien who had never encountered anything like it. Because that's who we are, she said finally. Humans believe that genocide is wrong, no matter where it happens or who the victims are. We couldn't call ourselves civilized if we ignored a call for help from innocent people. Admiral Dong Hyun was receiving reports from throughout the fleet when his communications officer made an announcement that changed everything. Sir, we're receiving communication requests from multiple alien species. They want to talk to us. How? Many species? 12 confirmed signatures, possibly more. They've been monitoring the battle, and now they want to establish contact. Dong Hyun realized that the battle had been more than a rescue mission. It had been humanity's introduction to galactic civilization, and every intelligent species within. Communication range had been watching. Put them through, he decided. The main screen filled with alien faces. Some looked almost human. Others were completely different from anything on Earth. But all of them had the same expression, amazement at what they had just witnessed. One of the aliens, a being with 4 arms and silver skin, spoke first. I am Counselor Velnath of the Galactic Observation Network. We have been monitoring your engagement with the Devourers. We must ask, why did your species risk so much to defend strangers? Admiral Dong Hyun looked at the assembled alien representatives. This was humanity's first diplomatic contact with galactic civilization, and his words would be remembered for generations. Because someone called for help, he said simply, and humans answer distress calls. But the cost, protested another alien. You lost ships, crew members, resources. What do you gain from this sacrifice? We gain the knowledge that we did the right thing, Dong Hyun replied. We gained the knowledge that when innocent people faced extinction, we stood up and fought. For them, the silver-skinned alien seemed confused. Your species fights for abstract principles, not for territory or resources? We fight for people, Dong Hyun clarified. Any people, any species, anywhere in the galaxy. A third alien, one with large eyes and blue skin, leaned forward. Are you saying that your species would respond to any distress call from any civilization? Yes. The silence that followed was profound. The assembled aliens looked at each other, then back at the human admiral. That is unprecedented, the blue-skinned alien said finally. No species has ever made such a commitment to strangers. Then no species has ever been human, Dong Hyun replied. Diplomatic officer Sunja was working with the Kethvar survivors to establish what she was calling the Galactic Protection Compact. The agreement was simple. Any species facing extinction could call for help, and humanity would respond. But as she worked on the details, she realized that the agreement was revealing something important about the galaxy itself. Commander Zephmar, she asked during one of their planning sessions, how many species knew about the Devourer threat before they attacked you? Many, Zephmar replied sadly. We sent warnings to dozens of civilizations. We asked for help, for military support, for anything. What did they say? They said it was not their problem. They said they were sorry for our situation, but they could not risk their own people for strangers. Soonja felt anger building in her chest. The Kethvar had not died alone because no one knew about their situation. They had died alone because no one was willing to help. How many other species are under attack right now? She asked. At least 3 that we know of. The Velnari are fighting something called the Silence in the Kepler sector. The Morden are under assault by the Grey fleet near the Galactic Rim, and the Thalnari are facing invasion by the Void Spawn in the Centauri region. And no one is helping them. No one, Zephmar confirmed. Each species fights alone or dies alone. Soonja made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Not anymore, she said. She contacted Admiral Donghyun immediately. Sir, we have multiple species under attack throughout the galaxy. The Kethvar situation is not unique. There are at least 3 other civilizations facing extinction right now. Are any of them within our response range? Donghyun asked. The Velnari in the Kepler sector. We could reach them in 2 weeks if we leave immediately. Prep the fleet for immediate departure, Donghyun ordered without hesitation. Sir, we just finished a major battle. Our ships need repairs. Our crews need rest. The repairs can be done while we travel, Donghyun replied, and our crews can rest after we save the Velnari. Throughout the human fleet, the news spread quickly. They were leaving immediately for another rescue mission, this time to help a species they had never heard of, in a star system they had never visited. There were no complaints. No one asked why they should risk their lives again for more strangers. The crews simply prepared their ships and got ready to travel across the galaxy to fight another impossible battle. Captain Chang Min of the exploration vessel UES Horizon was already plotting new hyperspace routes to reduce travel time to future crisis zones. His ship was fast but lightly armed, designed for scouting and reconnaissance rather than combat. Sir, his navigator asked, are we really going to be jumping from crisis to crisis throughout the galaxy? It looks that way, Chang Min replied. Command is setting up permanent rapid response forces to patrol different sectors. Yu Jin, the new director of the Galactic Response Division, was coordinating the effort from a command center that had been set up on one of the orbital platforms around Kethtanos. We need volunteer crews willing to spend months away from home, she announced to the fleet. We need ships positioned in different sectors of the galaxy, and we need to be ready to respond to any distress call within hours, not months. The response was overwhelming. Nearly every crew member in the fleet volunteered for extended deployment. Ships that needed repairs requested to be sent to forward positions as soon as they were operational. Humanity was transforming from a species that had never left their own small corner of the galaxy into the galaxy's self-appointed emergency response force. The alien observers were stunned by what they were witnessing. Your species is committing to permanent military deployment throughout the galaxy, Counselor Velnath commented. The cost in resources and personnel will be enormous. The cost of not doing it would be higher, Admiral Dong-hyun replied. Every time we ignore a call for help, innocent people die. We can't live with that. But your own colonies need protection too. What if you're attacked while your fleets are scattered across the galaxy? Then we'll fight with whatever we have, Dong-hyun said simply. But we won't abandon our principles because of fear. Mi Young, a colonial representative who had traveled with the fleet, tried to explain the human perspective to the assembled aliens. My home colony was destroyed by an industrial accident 5 years ago, she told them. Not by an enemy attack, just by equipment failure. When it happened, neighboring colonies sent everything they could to help with rescue and evacuation efforts. No one asked what they would get in return. No one calculated the cost. They helped because people needed help. That is normal behavior within a species, one of the aliens pointed out. What you are describing is different. You are helping other species. We don't see a difference, Mi Young replied. Intelligent life is intelligent life. Innocent people are innocent people. The fact that they have different skin color or breathe different